of cultural patterns that have evolved independently in different parts of the world, and archaeologists are often very puzzled by them. And in fact, that's why you get theories of people floating around the world on little rafts, carrying cultures with them. Well, in a world with morphic resonance, there's no need to have all these hypothetical rafts floating around the world, because people could pick it up anyway. Now, you see, the key feature of morphic resonance is similarity. If people are confronting a similar problem that other people have already solved somewhere else, they'll be more likely to find the same solution. But if they're not confronting that problem, then they won't come up with a solution. They won't resonate with the other people. So if you have two lots of people trying to solve the same kind of scientific or mathematical or technological or economic problem, you'd have ideal conditions for morphic resonance, and one of them may pick up what the others have, a solution the others have found. But if you have a tribe of people in Africa pursuing hunting or gathering, like pygmies in the Congo rainforest, and you have entrepreneurs in Victorian Manchester in England trying to find ways of spinning cloth more cheaply using industrial looms, there's such a difference between the problems that they're confronting that you wouldn't expect any resonance in that situation, any more than you'd expect the pygmies to start speaking English.
But at the moment, the culture is faced with, for instance, aspects of industrial revolution. Really faced. We bring it there. They can see it. They can experience what is happening. At that moment, I should think they will take over if you follow the hypothesis of formative causation.
Well, as soon as you... I don't agree. I think that as soon as people are confronted with the kind of industrial mentality and the industrial artifacts and start thinking in that kind of way, I mean, the remarkable thing is that the Industrial Revolution has spread to all parts of the world. I mean, you've got factories all over Africa, South America. The remarkable thing is that precisely this way of doing things has spread phenomenally fast. As soon as the links of trade and exports of industrial goods and techniques of capital and investment and so on. Now, part of this is, of course, ordinary communication. I would never claim this as an example for morphic resonance because a lot of it depends on perfectly normal means of human communication. But I would say that the remarkable thing is that as soon as these things are introduced to other cultures and people are introduced to these ways of doing things, they get it so fast. In New Guinea, for example, there are New Guineans driving lorries and operating machines when their fathers were living in a Stone Age culture. In a single generation, people have jumped about 20,000 years of human history. And that's what's so remarkable about the whole process of world development, that these things do spread so fast. I mean, I think it's a disaster myself in many ways, but the fact is that there's an enormously fast spread, however you choose to explain it.
I'm wondering, because it's one of the problems concerning morphogenetic fields. Little question, how big are morphogenetic fields? Light years? Are they reaching the ends of the universe?
Every organism that's organized by a field, a crystal, a cell, a giraffe, a cow, a person, is organized by a field within and around it. So just like a magnetic field is within and around the magnet, so the morphic field of an organism is within and around the organism. It's quite local. Now, what is non-local, what involves moving over great distances, is morphic resonance. Morphic resonance is the influence of one organism on another through or across space and time. And this resonance is, I think, independent of distance in the sense that it doesn't fall off with distance in space or time. Now, if that's the case, then people learning something in one part of the world should influence people all around the world, as long as they're in similar conditions, without showing any diminution due to distance. And more generally, if this is the case, it means that events on one planet or in one star could influence those in other stars or planets, even in other galaxies. There could be morphic resonance effects working over huge distances in the universe.
Yes, you wrote, there is the possibility that most, if not all, known patterns of activity that appear on Earth have already appeared frequently elsewhere in the universe or previous universes. Morphic resonance from these systems may swamp the predicted effects elsewhere in the universe or previous universes. I told my children tales like this. For you, it's simply a possibility.
It's a possibility.
Not Arabian Nights.
No, I think it's a possibility. I mean, it's a possibility that I don't think everything that's happened here has happened everywhere else. And the reason I think that is for the empirical fact that apparent morphic resonance effects do seem to be detectable. You see, if morphic resonance effects are not detectable, if there's no improvement with time, there are theoretically three other possibilities. One is that morphic resonance is wrong as a theory, which I'm sure most people would think, probably I would too, if the experiments didn't work. The second is that morphic resonance that everything that happens here has happened on other worlds somewhere else so often that there's nothing truly new happening on Earth. So you wouldn't see these effects because everything would already be governed by established habits. Mm-hmm. The third possibility is that morphic resonance works from the future as well as the past, in which case everything that's going to happen will also influence what's happening now. And since we don't know what's going to happen, this makes the theory virtually untestable. But it's a theoretical possibility. So what I'm concerned with here is the way that the novelty of things on Earth, if morphic resonance experiments yield positive results, in other words, if things get easier and easier, if we can see habits building up in nature, then either this shows that morphic resonance doesn't work over astronomical distances, or it shows that what's happening on Earth, these events that we're studying, are truly original in the cosmos. And so therefore, this opens up a theoretical possibility, an institute of cosmic novelty that could be set up on quite a low budget, where you could find out what's happened over the whole of the rest of the cosmos by testing for morphic resonance with the crystallization of thousands of different chemicals, for example. Now, if some of these chemicals turn out not to show a morphic resonance effect, if the crystals form the same way at the beginning and go on forming the same way, showing no habit, no tendency to crystallize better or faster, then we can infer these compounds have existed in a crystalline form elsewhere in the universe. If we find ones that do show this learning experience, that show this build-up of habit, we can infer that these have occurred for the first time here on Earth. So we can actually map what's happened elsewhere in the universe on a low-budget terrestrial laboratory without any need for expensive space probes, space shuttles, or other space technology costing many billions.
Who'd have thought you could send pictures, sound and music through space and vast distances if television, radio and telephone had not been invented? Who'd have thought that a brainless thing with plastic sides could do calculations in seconds that would take us weeks if the computer hadn't been invented? To illustrate the point, take a person from the 14th century. Tell him that he'll be able in the future to see an area of London where a certain Mr. Sheldrake lives, without being in London himself. And that he'd be seeing the street as it was a few months earlier. Tell him he could preserve time in a tin can on a narrow strip. Such is the distance between us and Sheldrake's theories. Unless they are translated into practical applications, they remain scientific heresy, to be burned at the stake.
What changes things fast is if you find a way in which a scientific discovery can be applied. If it then becomes a matter of business, commerce, everyday activity, then it doesn't matter about the theory. My primary aim is not applications of morphic resonance. I'm simply saying that when it reaches the point where it's applied, which may not be very far off, then it will take on a kind of reality in our present cultural context that it won't have until there are actual applications.
What kind of applications?